Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar called The Attendant Perspective, the people behind the care. So we're flipping the conversation around from what we normally do. And I'm really excited for this because I'm hoping everybody's bringing their honesty and openness to this very meaningful and important conversation for the people that I think are extremely underappreciated because what you guys do is the hardest job I've ever tried to do. So at Whimble, we do talk a lot about accessibility, independence, and support. But yeah, as I mentioned, we want to focus on the people behind that support today. If you haven't done this job before, I think people really don't recognize how personal this is, how vulnerable it is, how both joyful and sometimes challenging it can be to be part of someone's life. And it goes far beyond just scheduling a shift or showing up to assist with tasks. It's really about building trust, respect, adaptability, and human connection. So today we're going to have a chat about what drew you guys to this work, what you've learned through supporting clients. We'll chat more in depth about some of the challenges and misconceptions around attendant care and the moments that continue to make this work meaningful. So yeah, we're excited to begin. Before I jump into the questions, let's do a quick round robin of intros. So if you could each tell us your name, how long you've been working as an attendant or a PSW, and one thing you enjoy about the work that you do. And we'll go in alphabetical order. So we'll start with Anna, please.
For sure. Hi there. My name is Anna. I've been working as an attendant for just under 5 years now. And one thing that I absolutely adore about working in this field is being able to make a positive impact on people's daily lives, as well as building meaningful connections with clients and their families over time.
Perfect. Go ahead, Ola.
Hello everyone, my name is Ola Adekale and I've been a personal support worker for almost 6 years. And one thing I truly enjoy about being a PSW is the opportunity to make a meaningful difference in someone's everyday life, whether it's helping a person feel comfortable, respected, safe, or simply heard. Knowing that my care can bring dignity and comfort to someone gives the work a real purpose.
Thank you, Ola. Ola was one of the very first attendants with Whimble. Go ahead, Siwar.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name's Siwar. I use they, them pronouns also. And just to situate myself, I am in Toronto, locally known as Toronto. And I've been a PSW for about 4 years, a little over 4 years. And I think one of my favorite things about working as a care worker is getting the chance to learn new things about people. I think that's one of my favorite things.
There's a lot to learn. Okay, my first question is you've talked about how long you've been a support worker, PSW, or attendant, and we use these terms interchangeably. It gets confusing sometimes. But so you've talked about how long you've been working in this field for, but I'm curious what drew each of you to this work. Like, how did you end up doing this? And maybe we'll start with you, Siwar, and go backwards this time.
Yeah, there were a bunch of kind of circumstantial things that led me into care attendant work or PSW work. But I think when it came to really deciding to do it, I come from a dance background, like a freelance artist background. And I don't know, I was really curious. I was like, maybe there's some skills that I learned in that environment that could actually come in handy when it came to offering support to people and deep listening and having an understanding of consent and working with people's bodies and emotions all at once. And so, yeah, I just really wanted to kind of challenge myself and put those skills, apply those skills and pour them into communities where I felt like I can actually make a tangible, impactful impact on people's daily lives. Art feels like a bubble. It's a little bit insular, a little disconnected, and especially dance, having the industry being pretty ableist and problematic in a lot of ways, to be honest. Yeah, I was just ready to and move in a different direction.
If you can, which one's more physically challenging, being a PSW or being a professional dancer?
Oh, that's a good question.
If you had to pick
I
one.
would say that's a tough one. There were definitely some injuries I sustained from being a dancer that hopefully I'll never have to go through in my PSW work. But I would say it's exhausting though. I've definitely been pretty exhausted for sure. It is tiring. It's a lot to manage. I'm not burning yourself out when doing care work.
Yeah, for sure. Ola, how about you?
So, what originally drew me to this attendant care job was in 2020 during COVID. I had friends that have been in this profession long before then. I've always been like a customer service agent all my life. And then during that time, I was like, I keep hearing them talk about their work and stuff like that. And it sounds very interesting how they were making meaningful difference in people's lives. And I'm like, okay, let me just try it since I just got off mat leave then. When I started, it was a bit physically challenging, but over the course of time, I realized that it's more than just physical support. It's about building trust. It's about offering dignity, and the real human connection was what actually drew me and has kept me in this profession this long. So I've always been drawn to helping people, and I find myself helping people maintain independence and quality of life. And over time, the relational aspect of care became just as important as the practical task. So I find the satisfaction and joy that people have after giving them care. I find it very heartwarming, and it's what has kept me going. Yes.
Amazing. And how about you, Anna? How'd you end up here?
I'm originally from Vancouver, and my educational background is in psychology. I had always thought that I would go into some sort of private practice counseling. And in a sense, I do get to use my psychology training through this attendant work, which is lovely. And it wasn't a waste of a degree in 4 years of my life and thousands of dollars. But I had also known that I wanted to help people in whatever profession I ended up in. And it was that combined with the fact that I myself have multiple comorbid chronic pain conditions, those really informed my passion for accessibility, advocacy for vulnerable individuals, and being a source of emotional support and companionship for people who may feel isolated within our medical system. So, yeah, I had just moved from Vancouver to Ottawa during the early days of the pandemic, and there was an opportunity to participate in government subsidized PSW training. And I completed that virtual training. I absolutely just fell in love. And then since then, I've worked in numerous healthcare related institutions, long term care, hospital, but I've really found community health to be my calling. So started more in the psychological realm and then delved a little bit into the sociological world and really just found my calling working with my hands and doing more, yeah, more active care for people as opposed to being restricted to work that would be behind a desk.
And we're trying to introduce a monthly learning series for all of the attendants on Whimble, and I feel like we're gonna sign you up for more of the psychology, sociology behind care, Anna, if you're ever interested in
Awesome.
sharing with the team. Okay, I think, yeah, many people outside the field don't fully understand what attendant care can involve, and especially from the community support aspect. So I'd love for each of you to share a little bit about what a typical, and I don't think there are many days that look identical, but what would the most typical day look like for you working as an attendant? And maybe we'll start with you, Ola, this time.
Okay, so a typical day varies depending on the client's needs and routines. So it can include personal care, mobility support, preparing meals, accompanying them to appointments, housekeeping, community activities, and so on. So there is always a strong focus on communication, problem solving, and emotional support. So no 2 days are ever the same, which makes the work more dynamic and meaningful. So I wouldn't say because I am familiar with a particular client's routine and care, I always go in with each day being treated as a new day. I always try to be attentive and very observant for new developments or anything I can quickly catch up on.
Anything to add, Anna or Siwar?
I absolutely agree with Ola that no 2 days are exactly the same. Personal support work is a really active, hands-on career that's primarily people focused rather than desk focused, as I mentioned earlier. So a typical day as a PSW can totally differ depending on the client, the care setting itself, and the level of support needed. So while the routines themselves may vary, most days involve a combination of personal care, emotional support, household assistance, communication with families or healthcare teams. I know mine typically starts with checking in with the client, just confirming that they're still good for the date and the time, reviewing the care plan, see if there's been any changes. And typically, a lot of the shifts that I pick up are morning shifts. So that means that helping them get out of bed, helping with any kind of dressing, grooming, toileting, bathing, mobility assistance. Some clients may only need light support or companionship, while others may require full physical assistance or specialized care. So it's really just about meeting clients where they're at. And the biggest thing with person centered care is that they are directing the care. At no point should they feel like the visit is just a task for us to check off of our list. You're interacting with a real human being with emotions and with fears and with thoughts. And it's really important to meet them in the space that they're in and really respect the wishes for what they would like to accomplish during the visit.
Sure. I think people probably don't appreciate how hard it can be to be having your own stuff going on or having your own bad day and then having to be like compartmentalize and be like, okay, this is this person's time and this is their life and I can't bring that baggage into the shift. It can be challenging for sure. Anything else in your typical day, Siwar?
Again, the other two did a great job of covering like all of the bases there. Maybe the only thing I would add maybe for myself is I try to also do a bit of a self check-in as well before before actually arriving and interacting with the client. I try to check in with where I'm at, make sure because sometimes if I'm feeling tired or something, my mood can affect the visit, right? So I try to do my best to do a check-in for myself and a lot of reviewing of tasks, especially if I'm meeting someone I haven't met before or if I'm still getting to know a client, reviewing my the tasks and lists and stuff like that so that I'm not try to
I'm curious.
minimize having to ask too much, right? So I
Mhm.
try to do as much as I can. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm curious, Siwar, because you have a unique perspective on navigating the Toronto transit system to get around to all your various
Yeah.
shifts. I'm curious, like, how much of your time is spent figuring out logistics around getting to and from your shifts and to the next client? Do you just how have you built that into your routine?
It's a good question. I do. I'm fortunate, or I've made a good effort to, for most of my work, I try to keep it as consistent in one spot. I'm not
Mhm.
working necessarily for an agency that has me transiting to more than one client in one day or something. But usually there's a lot of transit planning though. There's so many, the subway is closed down so often. I've definitely pushed it in the past where I'm like, okay, if it says that it's just a half hour, I can leave maybe 10 minutes early, give myself a buffer. But in general, it's best to leave an hour early if I'm going anywhere here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes we've interestingly had not necessarily complaints, but we've had some comments or feedback from clients. It's been a pretty consistent thing where they get a bit frustrated that the attendant shows up early to the shift. But I think people don't fully appreciate when you're relying on public transit, especially here in Ottawa. I know the TTC can be frustrating, but I think OC Transpo blows it out of the water in terms of reliability failures. I think people take for granted how hard it is when you're on transit to show up at a very specific time at a specific location and not either be a little bit early because that was like better than being late or getting literally trapped somewhere and running a bit late. I think it's almost
Mhm.
an art and a science to navigate that.
Definitely.
Okay, for this one, we'll start with you, Siwar. And we've talked a little bit about this around the dignity and the vulnerability and the trust and connection in this work. But I'm curious, like when you start working with a new client for the first time, or you're meeting someone for the first time, how do you approach building trust and dignity and respect in your work with that client?
we're starting with me, right? I just
Yeah,
made
right.
so I just had a moment where I was like, oh, yeah. I was thinking about this because there's quite a few there's quite a few things to consider, especially because everyone is so different. Building trust and it can look slightly different with each person. But I would say that something I always try something in common across that I've tried to maintain is leaving assumptions at the door is a really big one. I think in general, I notice how easy it is to be like to assume that something is the way that it is, whether it's, oh, this is how someone does this always, or assuming a person's feelings based on looking at them or whatever. And the truth is that part of our job is about reading signals and reading body language, and that's definitely a part of our work. But I think in general, I always try to just not assume anything and prioritize communicating with the person in whichever way communication looks for that person. Everyone communicates differently as well, depending on what challenges are going on. Connection, communication, not assuming anything, not judging, not making any judgments or presumptions. And I usually lead with that, and that tends to open things up and for dialogue, and then a real collaboration can happen with the care.
Mhm. What about you, Anna? Anything that you find from from your psych training, anything in particular to build that trust?
Yeah, I definitely found that building trust starts with treating every client as an individual and making sure that they feel heard, they feel respected, and that they feel involved in their own care. I try to approach every situation with utmost empathy and patience and professionalism while recognizing that allowing someone into their personal space and daily routine, that takes a great deal of trust on the client's side. So maintaining dignity means respecting a client's choices and their privacy and their independence and their personal boundaries. So even during routine tasks, I really try to ensure that clients feel comfortable, they feel included, and that never rushed. So small things like explaining what I'm doing or asking permission, really deeply listening when they're communicating however they are communicating with me. And then respecting preferences can really make a huge difference in how supported someone feels. And then I also found consistency is really important. So showing up, again, just leaving the attitude at the door and just being really reliable and following through on commitments helps build strong relationships over time.
What about you, Ola?
So trust is built through consistency, respect, and listening to clients' preferences. Just as Siwar said, you leave assumptions at the door before you go into a client's home. So you have to treat each day as a new day, not the it was the previous day. So even when I have professional suggestions, I still prioritize their routines and choices. So it's very important to listen to them and check up on them. And it's better to support rather than control. I try as much as possible to involve them in the decisions about their care, especially the ones that are still very verbal and cognitive. It's hates communication between me as an attendant and them as my client. So maintaining dignity means respecting privacy, independence, and personal control at all times. I don't impose my own will or my own suggestions on them. I try to listen to them, even if I have a different opinion. I try to listen to them first and then make suggestions if necessary.
I remember one of our clients was telling us that he self-manages his care on direct funding, and so he interviews a lot of PSWs. And he was telling me one of the questions, I think it was something like he asked all of the PSWs he interviews, what would you do if I asked you to put ketchup on my cereal? And anything that's not like I would do it with a smile on my face is immediate no. I think it's okay to joke and be like, that's gross. I wouldn't do that, but here you go. Or yeah, but that respect of the individual's own preferences and dignity is so critical. We also had, I feel like I've learned so much from the complaints we've had over the years, but we also had a complaint one year. And I think we were asking this exact question in our interview process as well after it happened. But an attendant was helping a client eat dinner and a piece of food fell on the ground. And the client was like, that's fine, 5-second rule, I'll still eat it. And the attendant was at the time, who's no longer with Whimble, was like, no, I'm a healthcare worker and I have to protect you. You can't eat that food off the floor. And the client was like, that's not going to fly with me. So I think, yeah, you really have to respect the individual's own decisions and just be there as the assistants to follow their wishes is so critical. And it does come up now and again. Okay, I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear if there's any really meaningful or memorable experiences you've had as an attendant. Obviously, we can't go too much into identifiable information about the clients, but yeah, I'm curious if there's been any specific moment that has stuck with you. And maybe we'll start with Anna for this one.
Yeah, a few years ago, I was working with a client with FASD, which is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and shifts regularly involved working together with the client to clean the room, which was always endearingly covered with countless mountains of art supplies. Just, you couldn't even see the bed or the floor a lot of the time. It was just an explosion of beauty all the time, but it made it very difficult for them to navigate their own space, especially with art being a de-stressor and a coping mechanism. So we always tried to work together to build sustainable and manageable organization systems. So to this day, I still remember the excitement in my clients' eyes at the start of every shift as they really started to look forward to my visits with anticipation of having a clean space where they felt safe. Together, we were really able to build an incredible space that they can use to decompress after daily life struggles. So it was just such a joy being able to work with this client and just witnessing the personal growth that they underwent and really supporting their independence. And they really learned to love their space and really starting to acknowledge that if I want to be able to find my pencils or my brushes, maybe I can try to figure out a way to put them back in the same spot every time. Or this didn't really work. Maybe can we try putting this here next time? And so I love supporting that client's independence in their art space because that's where they felt most safe. And it's all about promoting dignity and safety in that way. And that was just one way that I was able to meet that client's specific need. And yeah, it honestly just warms my heart whenever I think about just how excited they were that they're like, we're going to clean my room. Yay. And that's not like, that's not the average experience I have with clients. They're more like, you can do it. There's the mop and bucket. But this client really wanted to engage as far as their capacity allowed with joining me on that endeavor. So that was really heartwarming and memorable for me.
Amazing. If you can come help me with my house next, that would be great.
I got you.
How about you? Maybe Siwar will go to you and then come back to Ola.
No, I was really thinking about this one. I was like, it's like a tricky one for some reason. Because I'm like, oh, there's the moments are super simple most of the time, at least for me. I don't know. There was one client who I've been working with more recently, and it's a little bit of a newer relationship. And yeah, and this client is navigating like alcoholism as like an elderly person, as well as some other issues. And so yeah, in terms of like their energy levels and like amount of participation, it tends to be on like the lower side. I'll come in, chat, and then I'll go and prepare a meal or something for them while they're either listening to music or lying in bed or something like that, right? And I don't know, I went in one day and it was a nicer day outside, and I don't know, they were a bit more active. One day they came in, they were like in the kitchen, they were waiting for me, they were watching me prepare the thing, they were a bit more involved. And those moments are really nice. Those moments of seeing, oh, okay, if we're down, it's okay. If we're up, it's okay. But it's nice to see how people fluctuate and to be appreciative and present when it happens, not to draw too much attention to people's moods and things, but just to be like there and present for that and noticing that, oh, okay, so I'm happy that they're doing better today, or so those moments are nice. I think in general, I know there's another story too where there was a client who it was a little bit more difficult to connect with her. She was like going through late stage dementia and also language barriers, so it was hard to kind of connect. But I think her socks are a little bit too tight, and I think she didn't know how to communicate that to people. And I remember her, and I speak a little bit. She spoke Portuguese, and I speak a little bit of it. So I was like, I understood she was moving her feet and gesturing, and I was like, oh, maybe her. And then I was like looking, I was like, oh, her socks are kind of tight. I kind of readjusted them and stuff, and just seeing the relief afterwards, and kind of wanted to hold my hand, or just these moments are really special, simple but special. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really opportunity to make a significant impact on those little moments of everybody's day. We're just moving on to challenges and misconceptions and what you each wish that more people understood about this work. And that can be if you wish more clients were aware of this, if you wish more of the general public or policymakers, really any realities or misconceptions that you want to share. So maybe we'll start with you, Ola, if that's okay.
Sure. So many people underestimate how skilled and demanding this work really is. It involves a lot of emotional, physical, and mental responsibility beyond the basic tasks. So it is also deeply meaningful because of the relationships built. So the focus is always on dignity, respect, and independence. And once relationships is built, it becomes kind of part of you. And if you see something going wrong, it affects you just as much as it affects the client also. Um, a lot of people think it's just about the money. It's just about doing us a favor. No, you have a need. We are rendering you the service for your needs, and you're paying us. And beyond the money, beyond whatever it is that we are getting from the monetary aspect, trust me, it takes a lot of emotion out of us. And a lot of us will work with our heart. We work knowing that we are it's going to affect us if things doesn't go the way it should. So some people would, I think the major thing for me, the major misconception is that at least we are paying you. Okay, good, thank you, you're paying us, but really it takes more. It takes more. It takes a lot of psychological, mental, and emotion out of us. And I wish people would realize this and put this as skills and everything that we bring to the table first beyond thinking that we get paid or they're doing us a favor or without them we would not survive. No, we put our heart into what we do.
Yeah, it's not a 9 to 5 job where you close your laptop and then don't think about it again. It really, yeah, the situations stick with you for sure. What about you, Anna?
I had three kind of off the top of my head. Two of them are pretty related. One of the biggest misconceptions about attendant care I found is, and support work, is it's just helping people with basic tasks. In reality, the role requires a combination of physical skill, emotional intelligence, communication, adaptability, critical thinking, professionalism, like you name it. The list goes on and on. Attendants are often balancing healthcare responsibilities and emotional support and safety awareness and advocacy and relationship building all at once. And the one kind of related to this, another misconception is that the work is only physically demanding. So while there's certainly a physical labor involved, the emotional side of the job can be just as challenging. So supporting people through illness, isolation, frustration, loss of independence, or just difficult life varying situations, it requires a lot of patience and emotional resilience some of the time. The last one that kind of came to mind was that I feel some people underestimate how truly individualized this work is. There's definitely no size fits all approach. Every client has different routines and personalities, communication styles, comfort levels, support needs. That means that attendants have to be constantly adapting and problem solving throughout the day. But yeah, just wrapping it on like a happy note, I do feel it's people sometimes just focus on the challenges and overlook how meaningful and rewarding this work can really be. And the relationships and the trust, the impact that you're building with clients can be incredibly fulfilling, even through some of these challenges. I wouldn't say that I have more challenges than meaningful experiences in this work at all.
It can be all the things at once. What about you, Siwar? What are some misconceptions or challenges that you've want to share?
I don't know. I'm gonna bounce off Anna a little bit because I was thinking about this. I was like, yeah, like I feel like I often hear it's like either, oh, it's so hard, it's so hard, focusing on that, or again, the misconception that it's an easy job or that it's like a minimal education job, like kind of both these extremes of and there's some environments or visits or times that I'm working where I'm like, this doesn't feel like work. Sometimes I'm really just enjoying being here, helping this person out, maybe chatting with them or enjoying the atmosphere of the whole thing, right? And then also there's obviously instances where it is really challenging when people are going through really, because we're often there when people are going through grief. We're often there when people are, and that actually I would say grief is a big aspect. And not just when someone passes, but the grief of navigating an ableist world or the grief of maybe for folks who have chronic pain, just having to deal with that every day. So there is a really big aspect of being emotionally attuned, striking that balance between having that personal connection while also maintaining a professional relationship, being a good listener, but then also sometimes being that person that when folks maybe need to hear something or need to hear that a reassurance or an advice, right? The extremes of it being a hard job or it being like an easy job are, I think, are some of the biggest misconceptions that people come at it with. And I think people underestimate just how much of the job requires a person to just be able to connect with another human being on a kind of, for lack of a better way of describing it, like a human to human level, using your relation, being able to have a relational intelligence, emotional intelligence. I think it's underestimated a lot.
I think anyone who talks about robot caregivers needs to understand that it's not just, yeah, the physical task. There's so much involved around the emotional connection and the companionship and, yeah, all those pieces that I don't think a robot's going to be able to manage very well. Okay, I do want to, if anyone in the audience has questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat or in the Q&A box while we wait to see if any of those come in. I just wanted to ask one last question. Maybe this can be just a quick round in case questions come in from the audience, but for anyone listening who may be considering joining this field, what advice would you give them? Just in a couple of words. Start with Anna.
I would tell someone entering this field to come with an open mind and a willingness to learn from the people that they support. This field can be really physically and emotionally demanding at times, but it can also be incredibly meaningful and rewarding. And I would also just encourage people to remember that this work is about supporting independence and dignity and not just completing tasks.
Ola, what about you?
Okay, what I would advise people joining this profession is that a job is not difficult unless you say it is difficult. Once you come in with an open mind, with the right attitude, and open yourself to learning, you'll find it very easy and very fulfilling. The thought of adding value to somebody's life, helping the vulnerable in the society is very satisfying. So when you come with the right attitude and with the right mindset, it's a very fulfilling job. And it's very hard to quit once you start, trust me. You build relationships, you will meet very wonderful families, individuals, despite what they're going through, they are still very happy and bubbly and always want to do things by themselves. Saying that alone is very motivating. And like I said, when you have the right attitude and mindset and you're very open-minded, it's a very good profession to work in.
Amazing. And what about you, Siwar? Final couple of thoughts?
Yeah, I would recommend that anyone wanting to enter into this work, think about which communities you're wanting to serve, because within care attendant work, there's such a variety of ages, the types of environments, home care or long-term care. Really think about what environments you want to be in and pour your energy into. And I would say maybe read up on disability justice, try to learn about different movements of folks who are doing disability justice work. I would say any kind of people who are doing work to kind of create more culturally competent environments, really do research, go to any kind of talks and panels on those subjects, because at the end of the day, we're working with people. Everyone is coming from a different lived experience. I think having those skills and having that understanding really helps with being able to build trust and also be able to position yourself in relationship to another person is really important. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, that's time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today and being so willing to share your experiences. I feel like I started off the conversation whining about how hard it is, and you guys have like reinvigorated that it is a really rewarding job, and there are lots of positives to be gained from it. So thank you for ending us on a more positive note. And yeah, I appreciate all of your hard work. Thank you, everyone who joined us in the audience today, for taking time out of your day. It was sunny here in Ottawa, maybe not anymore, but yeah, appreciate you taking your lunch break to listen to this webinar. And if you'd like to learn more about Whimble, please feel free to stay connected with us. We'll send out an email for feedback shortly, and we look forward to joining you again next month. Thanks, everyone. Take care.